What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Kendrick Youngblood. All right, for my subs, I'm real sorry. I know I went on a bit of a hiatus. I didn't put out a video last week. I was really busy with school and also poetry performances. Like I was doing spoken word and stuff like that. And I still have more to come this month alone, but I'm gonna try to be more consistent. Don't worry, y'all, I got you. But today we're gonna be covering how to write acrostic and double acrostic poems. Acrostic poems, most of y'all are probably familiar with, but double acrostics, those are a bit more complicated. Granted, I've got a template for y'all on how to, make sure it's the best that it could possibly be, and the kind of acrostic poem or double acrostic poem that would actually get published, even though it's a bit weird and unconventional in terms of form. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, that really helps. We're at what, like 83 subs right now? Yeah, we're about 83 subs. Like I'm trying to get to 100. From 100 to 1,000. You know what I'm saying? 10,000. You never know. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do anything and everything pertaining to poetry. I might drop a spoken word. I might give tips on how to improve your writing. I might give a story time about a poetry event I might have had. I might even do reactions. I'm thinking about doing reactions to spoken word and stuff like that. So make sure you come through. Anyway, I'm gonna switch to the screen camera on my computer, and from there we're gonna actually analyze two of my poems, one being an acrostic, the other being a double acrostic. Yeah, the acrostic actually just got published. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to the actual, template on how to write acrostic and double acrostic poems. All right, so before we actually discuss how to write acrostic and double acrostic poems, we first got to cover what an acrostic is. An acrostic typically uses the first letter of every line to form an acronym that spells out the topic of the poem. Some acrostics, however, use the last letter of every line to spell out the acronym, or even place the acronym in the middle of the poem. So I have three examples of this. One in which the acronym's on the left side of the page using the first letter of every line. One example in which the acronym is on the right side of the page using the last letter of every line. And then an example of the acronym being in the middle. This first one, I wrote it myself. It's called The New Colossus. It's an after poem of the original The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. The poem by Emma Lazarus was about the Statue of Liberty, but my poem, on the other hand, takes a different topic, utilizing the same structure, but adding an acrostic, which will indicate who this poem is about. Greater than that sickly green colossus, out of Jupiter's head, a living prize. Deep in a forest seldom seen by eyes, dwells the divine virgin of Quinquatris. Etched into the breastplate of the goddess, stitched in her cloak as well, names in large size, such as warrior, medic, merchant, wise. Mother of the elite, for her caucus is comprised of rich, powerful men. When night comes, she says, bow to me, clergy, each time I bless you, again and again. Revere my temple of trees with great fear. Valued zealots shall gain control of men, and intruders, the grim end of my spear. A common mistake I see a lot of beginner poets make when it comes to acrostics is they will have the acrostic form carry the weight of the work. So they won't have anything like metaphors, juxtaposition, alliteration, rhyme, meter, tension. None of that will exist in the poem. They're simply like, as far as I'm concerned, so long as I have that acrostic down, that is all I need to do. And no, if you want to get a poem published, not only the form, but the content must also be compelling. Now, if you look at this acrostic here, it has the acronym, sure, Goddess Minerva, you can see that on the left side of the page. But furthermore, it has a Petrarchan sonnet rhyme scheme, just like Emma Lazarus' poem. It also has a lot of vivid imagery, things like Temple of Trees, or the grim end of my spear, the sickly green colossus, out of Jupiter's head. And if you didn't know, the goddess Minerva is the equivalent of Greek mythology's Athena. And just like Athena came out of Zeus's head, Minerva came out of Jupiter's. All right, anyway, y'all don't care about that. But yeah, the point really is the poem does a lot even without the acrostic. The acrostic is simply icing on the cake, not the cake itself. Now, normally I don't actually capitalize the first letter of every line. In this age of poetry, it's not highly recommended that you do that if you are trying to get a poem published, but I wanted to accentuate or highlight the acrostic itself. So to make sure people noticed it, I did go ahead and commit that taboo. However, I would say do that sparingly and do it with a purpose. Don't simply capitalize the first letter of every line because, oh, that's what I do in a poem. Nope. Nowadays, it needs to be clear that what you do in your poem is intentional. Otherwise, it just looks like lazy writing. Yeah, all right. Another tip I would give when it comes to acrostic poems is to make sure you're not starting the lines with a letter it's very hard to start a sentence with. The letters J, K, X, Z, I would even say Y in some cases, unless you're using the word you, because it's pretty easy to start a sentence off with you, but try to think of other sentences that you can start off with the letter Y. It's a bit hard to do that. X, obviously difficult. Try not to put yourself into a corner where you're kind of forced to make a sentence fit just because you're trying to make the acrostic work. So because of that, I would suggest to be very mindful of the letters that are in the acrostic. But if you look at Goddess Minerva, it's not too hard to start a sentence off with the letter D or G or O. You know what I'm saying? It was pretty easy. I didn't have to force anything. So yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, so as you can see here, these are the two other examples I was talking about. I didn't write these, I got these off the internet, but I'll just read these out for the sake of showing how acrostics can be done. What do you know about money? It obviously is very important. Everyone uses it. It's very fun to spend, but you must learn to save it. And as you can see here, the content of the poem is about money. So of course that's what they're gonna make the acrostic. You're not gonna make the acrostic Cheetos and it's about money. That doesn't make sense. You know what I'm trying to say? In the other example, you have the acrostic on the right side of the poem. Running back to where you're already sniffed. We always wonder where you get to. Then you come bounding back, panting, covered in mud but hating baths. And this poem is about dogs. That makes sense. So make sure that the acrostic actually complements the message of the poem. Okay, here is where we get to the fun stuff. What exactly is a double acrostic? A double acrostic uses the first letter of every line to form an acronym and the last letter of every line to form an acronym. Now, the acronym on the left side of the page and the right side can be the same, but they can also be different. So a great example of this would be the terrible double acrostic I made for the sake of the thumbnail. Makes no sense. The acrostic doesn't fit with the acronyms on the left and right side much at all, but I was just trying to put something for the thumbnail, all right? So don't judge me. But in this other poem I wrote, which I haven't gotten published yet, sadly, I actually use a different acronym on the left side than on the right side. Karaoke night with you and company at St. Dane's always manages to brighten my Tuesdays the most. Rest assured, you are the main reason why I attend. Anytime you sing, you attract every phone camera owned by onlookers. I am quite lucky to have seen kindred spirits unite as they hearken to such a voice. Every member of the audience vibes to your vocals. Queen Lavender Flowers is your alias among the masses. Under your highness, we sing, dance, connect, and feast. Each of the bar's noblemen revere your imperial persona. Even the famous would kneel to hear you sing their song. Name your scepter, microphone, and your throne stage. Only your stage presence can reach everyone's radar. No one matches your style of singing Badu's Tyrone and on, or your charisma's hold on a crowd. News of you engulfs St. Dane's as if you were a celeb. Does anybody sing Gambino's Redbone like you do? Only God knows, though I doubt even Gambino can. Needless to say, you alone are karaoke queen for life. One thing I tried to make sure to do when writing this poem was for the lines to seem organic, rather than simply written for the sole purpose of forcing the acrostic out. A reader can tell if a double acrostic is forced. The lines don't make sense. It seems like there are words that the writer would never use, but they did for the sole purpose of making the form work. You don't want that. I would never suggest prioritizing form over the quality of the lines. You want to have a good balance of both. In my first acrostic, I capitalized the first letter of every line, but that is not the only way to highlight the acronym in your poem. You can also bolden the letters in the acrostic. So I made sure to do that in this one to show you that there's more ways than one to highlight the hidden word. Here in the first stanza, for example, you can see karaoke on the left side, St. Dane's on the right side. In the second stanza, queen on the left side, stage on the right side. And the third stanza, on the left side, and Redbone on the right side. And these all pertain to the topic of each stanza. One thing I would not advise someone doing is both capitalizing and boldening the letters in the acrostics, especially for a double acrostic. It's too much. One or the other is enough to highlight it. It's already unconventional to do one or the other. It's okay if you want to be experimental every now and then, but don't take it too far. You're not trying to break too many taboos at once. You know what I'm saying? Something else you also might have noticed as I read this poem is that a lot of the lines in each stanza are more or less the exact same length. Now, this isn't something you have to do. It's something I personally like to do when it comes to double acrostic specifically. The reason being is that I like the acrostic being very straight, and if it is, it'll be very easy to see the subliminal message in the poem. If it's jagged, say on the right side, for example, kind of like how it was in the thumbnail. I'll put up the thumbnail again so you can see. Yeah, it's a bit harder to see what the acrostic is because your eyes kind of have to zigzag across the page. It's not a bad thing, but my personal preference, if I'm doing a double acrostic poem, the lines in each stanza are the same length. I wish I could give this more time. Sadly, I can't. I got a lot to do today. But I think that really covered everything you need to know when it comes to acrostics and double acrostics. They're not complicated. Well, that's not true. Double acrostics are a bit hard, I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely possible so long as you know not to neglect the quality of the lines for the sake of forcing the form to happen. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. I'm out. Deuces.